Thanks a lot for coming on the show, Graeme. I appreciate it. Maybe I'll just briefly mention where I first heard of Grand Theft Bus. I lived in Fredericton for a little bit in the mid 2000s, and it was actually the album Made Upwards, recorded by, I believe it was James Gauthier. That was the album that kind of like brought me into the Grand Theft Bus world, even though I know there's like I wasn't quite into that like jam or indie rock vibe at first. So like I kind of missed out on the Birth of Confusion and the first two records really. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. I remember that record Made Upwards being like just especially specifically the drum sound. I know there's a story there too about the way the drums were recorded in one of the big houses there downtown Fredericton. So
the whole album was done there actually at Old Government House.
It was okay, the whole record. So did you set up like in a live?
Well, I say that. So we set up. I take that back. Not all of it. Some of it was in James's studio, but there was a fair bit of it that was done in Old Government House. So yeah, Bob had drums set up in that main. If you've ever been in that building, there's sort of a main sort of gathering space, kind of in the middle of the building on the first floor. So that was where drums were.
Okay.
Control room was across the hall, and then we had ISO stuff set up, with guys in different rooms.
Okay.
Kind of off that main room. So yeah, that was a really, really cool experience.
And it sounds like the drums sound huge in that record. And was it recorded mostly live off the floor, or were you laying it down one at a time?
Yeah, a lot of it was. So a lot of bass and drums were. Okay. And if I'm totally honest, I can't remember, what got kept and what didn't. I have a recollection now going back to James's studio and also doing tracks there as well. But yeah, you're right. The drum sounds are huge on that, and that was intentional. I remember about sort of we were looking for a departure at that point, and working with James on that. That was a really cool process. It was really fun. But yeah, if you came in at Made Upwards, you came in late in the game.
Late in the game. Yeah. I got out of high school in 2003, so that's when I started to like go to the bars and check out bands. I had to wait till I turned 19 or whatever, so I just kind of missed the. And again, I was like a metalhead. I was a punk metalhead, so the jam stuff wasn't on my radar.
Yeah, cool.
But maybe before we get too far into it as well, let's plug the live recording coming up July 12th at Area506. So if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be your second live album?
It'll be our second live album, yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the first one done in 2019 at Folly Fest. Yeah, and then it kind of got, that record came out and it kind of got caught in that weird COVID period and sort of life changed for everybody, and so focus on music wasn't certainly there for sure. So it's interesting because we're really, really quite proud of that record, and forever in this band, it's sort of like, make studio albums, but really the energy around the band is in live shows, and that sort of became the identity. And the challenge was always like, how do you possibly capture that? And I know that's a cliche, and I'm sure every band says that, but it's certainly true in our case. It's like, there's so much spontaneity, and there's so much, it can be really goofy, and it can be really loud, and it can be really, it's just really no rules around that, and it can go any direction. And how do we possibly capture that? And we hadn't been able to do that in a studio record, that's for sure. Okay. And so we're really, really happy with the way musically that turned out at Folly Fest. And there's lots of music that we weren't able to fit on it. It came out as a vinyl record, and of course we couldn't afford to do a double one, and there's way more music there than could fit on one. So yeah, we're going to take another stab at it on July 12th, and we've played Container Village for a couple of years in a row, and they're just awesome people, and what they're trying to do, what they're doing down there it's phenomenal, and just there's a lot of energy behind that, and so we thought it'd be a good spot to try it, and it's home base for Tim and I, for our family. Our extended families are there. Okay. And there's a whole, I'm sure we'll get into it, but there's a whole sort of community element to this as well, and fundraising aspect, and specific to St. John area. So we're really, really pumped to get down there and do it again. Yeah, I would love to talk about that right away. To be honest, you're talking about the Friars Family Celebrate Fund, right? Where all the proceeds go into that. So I know there's a whole story behind that. Many years, over $1 million raised, I believe, over the life of the program. So if you want to dive into that, I would love to tell the listeners. Sure. Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's so my mom, Tim and I are brothers. Tim and I are in the band together, and our mom passed away 2 years in October, and she's part of a huge musical family, the Friars family. And they've been singing and making music in St. John and throughout New Brunswick for well, their whole lifetime. And it was really become their identity, in the community. And they've connected to every wedding and every funeral somehow in the greater St. John area in terms of music. So, so 17 years ago, they started a concert that would happen once a year at the Imperial Theatre, and it was really just an effort to raise some money for the community. And that really took on a life of its own very, very quickly, and turned out to be a situation that every year they put this thing on sale, and the whole theater sold out in 45 minutes, kind of thing each year. You'd have people camping out the night before, lined up for tickets, and just turned out to be a really, really cool thing, and just the anchor for this community fund that they put together. So, fast forward the 17 years, and they've decided really to call it quits. It's after 17 years. There's been a couple of the family members who have passed, and as people move along, priorities change, and it takes a lot of energy to put something of that magnitude together, because it's not just the show; it's the community awareness, it's the fundraising and the sponsorship, and the building relationships, and there's just so much to it, and that doesn't go on forever. So over the years, that fund is my understanding is it's raised up around $1 million, and each year there's the money made off the sort of balance in that fund goes to 5 priority neighborhoods in the St. John area that the Community Foundation has identified. And they take applications from a variety of programs and different things to help support them financially, and things that essentially make the community a better place to be, and create better situations for people in their lives. So, so for us, it's a no-brainer. Tim and I had a conversation about how do we do our part in that. So it's been my mom and her family and everyone connected to it. But how do we do our part now that major driver isn't going to be there anymore to drive that revenue? So yeah, we thought let's do the show and let's make the record, and we're in a situation now, very gratefully, that our cousin Brent McDonald, Brent's the biggest music fan in St. John, he's at every show always, and his business background is in fundraising for business startups and that sort of thing. So he was able to raise the money necessary to pay for the record. So that came from the community as well, and so we're walking into this having the whole thing paid for, which is amazing. Nice. What that means is that every dollar made from every sale of every record goes into the Community Foundation. So there's some potential here to raise a significant amount of money for people, and that's kind of where we're at. So it's very much a team effort, and we feel like a lot of the heavy lifting is over, to be honest. For us, it's to play the show and record it and manufacture the record, and that be it. Brent has done a lot of work on the front end of this, getting this together, and working with 506 on the logistics of it, and the point of sale stuff and the marketing stuff, and it's been a lot for them to work on. So and a huge shout out to the folks at 506, to Ray and to Sarah and to James, and what they're doing. Well, weekly, there's shows there every single week, and then there's a couple of big festivals they're doing, of course, and but the energy they've put into this one specifically, it's really, really appreciative of that. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, the couple times I've interacted with Ray, it's awesome seeing what they've built down there, and not only with the stage and everything, but they've also got the container villages. So there's those seasonal businesses that get to kind of thrive during the cruise ship season. Yeah, really, really cool, really creative, and it's just a great spot to hang out and spend time. Yeah, for sure. So that show specifically is going to happen. I'll just remind the listeners, July 12th. I'm pretty sure the VIP tickets have sold out, but there's still regular admission tickets still available for, I believe they're $36. Yeah, I think there's tickets available. Yeah, I know that. Well, as of this morning there was, and that's a big space for a band like ours. So I don't hope that a sellout is a problem that we have to have, but if people are interested, it's for this one, it's not necessarily about Grand Theft Bus, right? We're kind of looking at it as we're just the tool to sort of generate some goodwill and some money for people who need it, and so I guess reminding people that it's not specifically about our band, and come check it out for a great cause.
Yeah. And it's nice to kind of pay it forward, like coming from the history with your mother and the Friars family. Like, it's nice to be able to push that forward even further.
Yeah, and that's the thing of that whole project. I think we're in a bit of a state of transition right now, where what is next? And we talk about that. There's a handful of cousins that we talk about that, and sort of like these are big shoes to fill, right? What they've created is a huge project with real significant impact, positive impact, and we don't take that lightly, but we need to figure out how we can contribute. And in conversations that Tim and I have had, this is one of the very few ways, honestly, musically, is one of the few ways that we can contribute to this and make it make sense. So we wanted to take the opportunity to do it.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. So I'll put a link to the like the tickets in the show when this goes out. So anyone who's wondering where to go, they can just click the link and they'll be there.
That would be cool. Jay, if you wanted to, if you just a quick Google search to the Community Foundation Friars Fund, will give you lots of information on what the fund actually is. And I think there's a little video there from a few years ago that was put together by my cousin James and our family friend Katie Wallace. And it's just sort of a narration about, what the fund is and how it started and who the principal people are involved. And it's just, part of this whole thing is to get that message out, to have people understand what it is that the Friars family has been trying to achieve and has very successfully achieved. That's a huge component, I think, to the story and why it's important.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I'll take a hunt for that, and then I'll include that too for people to check out.
You don't get to choose your family, but if I could, these are the ones I would choose. And one of the things that I find is this absolute need to be connected. It is how we survive. We are 10 children, 8 girls, 2 boys. We are 28 grandchildren of those 10 and 48 great-grandchildren of those 10. Pretty magnificent, actually. We can fill a room.
Every Saturday, for as long as I can remember, there's been a biscuit party. It's going to happen every single Saturday, forever.
I would say, really, at the heart of it was our mom. Mom was that grounding, that connector. And that whole need to connect with one another and to connect to community, I think starts with mom.
She was a single mother at a time when, that wasn't the norm. And she tackled everything with positivity regardless. I think that's trickled through to my mother and her sisters and her brothers. And you see it generally in people's lives day to day. Let my memory be your fire. So I think our family loves 3 things. They love music, they love each other, and they love to give back. And a lot of people know the Friars family from their concert. But that's really just a big version of what happens every Saturday at the biscuit party.
I've talked a lot about the New Brunswick dream, and for me, it's family. It makes you think about those that don't necessarily have that support, and the opportunity for us to be part of an extended family for others that need that most.
We have raised a little over $1 million, and you say those words, and it's like, how can that possibly be? It seems impossible. The concert started with the tsunami that took place 15 years ago, and from that we realized that we had an opportunity to continue to give to our community in a broader way, and we took it to the Imperial Theatre, and 15 years later we've raised a significant amount of money for wonderful causes in Greater St. John.
Families that are in all of our 5 priority neighborhoods are benefiting from that money. There's all kinds of food security programs that we do, literacy programs, singing programs, music in the park. I mean, it goes on and on of how the money is put back into the community.
The Friars Family Celebrate Fund is an endowed fund entrusted with the Community Foundation. And unlike other fundraising initiatives, what we do is we don't spend donations, we invest donations. And what the Friars Family has directed us to do is match earnings from their fund with initiatives that specifically address generational poverty.
I have such a sense of warmth when I think about the fund, because it now becomes bigger than just my sisters and I doing what we do. It becomes as much about the rest of our family getting very engaged in that whole process.
We are thrilled today to present a check in the total amount of $71,530.
The foundation is a great next step, but it'll show what it means to be dedicated to a cause, and others will be inspired and want to be part of it.
When you give to the Friars Family Celebrate Fund, you're joining the circle. You're joining the circle of their legacy, their passion, their commitment to ending generational poverty in Greater St. John.
If you want to help us continue to make a difference, then the fund is a wonderful way for you to give.
So maybe,
awesome.
So it's and like you said, bringing the music into this approach. I mean, when I was first getting into the scene, like I mentioned, at like 2000, I got out of high school 2003, and it was just a year or two before that is when I first started to discover local music. Even though I wasn't into like the indie or jam band scene, I was like aware of Grand Theft Bus and like the Jimmy Swift band, and like it was the reputation was the live show for you and Jimmy Swift band, or the two bands I think of. Like even though I wasn't paying attention, I remember people emphasizing the live aspect of it. So I think you're probably bang on that doing this live recording as Grand Theft Bus is like marrying like best of both worlds in terms of garnering support for the fund, or is looking for something charitable to put forward.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, the nice part about it is it's sort of like, it's a snapshot of this one night, right? And it's sort of like all the players are going to be there. So our band is there, and our families are going to be there, and our aunts and uncles and cousins, and all of, you know, our musical friends and people that have supported the band, and just people who like live music. And it's sort of like, you know, it's a really important cause in our world. You know, Tim and I specifically, and this whole thing is just a snapshot of our effort to try and do something good. And so it's really important from that end. You know, it's kind of interesting that, you know, years from now we can look back and holy smokes, like that was that night.
Absolutely.
You know? So,
yeah. And some people in the audience might, you know, the people in the audience too will be able to visualize being back there, or maybe they'll even hear themselves cheering or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and the whole record piece. I mean, you know, vinyl's made a resurgence, and that's the chosen medium now if people are buying a physical copy for the most part. And the hope is that, you know, maybe it starts a record collection, or maybe people are buying it just, you know, because it's the cause, but also it's a cool piece of art. You know, it's going to be Dennis from our band is a super creative dude, and he's going to take care of the jacket design and everything that goes with that. So it's, you know, there's a physical element there that I think is going to be really cool. And so
I think
so the whole. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the physical media, I think, is like there's a little bit of a resurgence, or people coming back to that when they like. It's nice to have everything at your fingertips digitally, but the piece of art and something you can put your hands on is also. I mean, I'm also kind of maybe an older generation, an old guy talking about what I grew up with, but I still feel that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece for sure. I still feel that way as well. I don't, you know, I'd love to be able to buy records, you know, ongoing. The reality is I've got two teenagers, and life's expensive, and records are expensive, but I will certainly come back to that, you know, and I've sort of made a commitment to myself that my favorite records are the ones I will have on vinyl. I can't afford to have every piece of music that I like, but those sort of, you know, everyone's got their desert islands, and you know, those are the ones I'd like to have vinyl copies of for sure.
Hang on to. Thinking about the time limitations of the vinyl, like how do you choose the set list for the set? And also, like, maybe a two-part question is that, like, is improvising and jamming still a large part of the performance? And then that plays into kind of the limitations of vinyl as well. Like, how do you guys kind of balance that, or choose that, or manage it?
Well, balance is a good word. To be honest, we did, like, last time we didn't put a whole lot of thought into that. We did a little bit, like, so yes, the improv piece is definitely a part of the show, and always will be. It's sort of, you know, sometimes it's where we feel like we're at our best, you know, and it's that idea of, like, it's that collection of 5 people specifically making that music, and that I think that's sort of that's the uniqueness of the band. So that's going to be a part of it. So we want an element of that on the record for sure. But you're right, it's only going to be about 40 minutes, and it would be nothing for us to spend 40 minutes meandering around one chord or one theme or one idea or whatever, just to see what sticks. So we're going to have to be careful with that. But really what will happen, I think, inevitably, is that we'll play 2.5 hours of music that night, probably.
Okay.
And then choose 40 minutes of what we think is a nice mix of, song structure and some of the improvs, and we will never get into editing it necessarily, like editing the actual pieces of music, but we're going to have to be editing tracks and cutting things but it's going to be a balance. So I think we'll just look at the whole thing overall, and hopefully some obvious moments stand out that we think are great and that we're really proud of and that should be there. And then, we just sort of start working backwards from there and piece together. It could easily be a double record. There's no way around that. But the reality is we've only got about 40 minutes to work with, and some of that is a bit of peace of mind, right? Because when you're playing the show, you can sort of let go of the idea that every moment is accounted for and going to be on the record, because that's not the case.
Okay.
So it offers a little bit, I think, of takes the tension away, takes the anxiety away of that. But if we can just, reference the last time we did it, it just felt like a normal show. The weather got a little bit hairy, so that was something we had to contend with. But the tech company that's doing the work, we're really close to and know very well, and they're all so good at what they do, and so we're in good hands that way. So I think everything's in position where it needs to be. It's just us get up and play the show, and then the chips will fall where they fall.
Okay, very cool. How do you mentioned anxiety? Like when I started playing music too, like I came up as like a bass player. I started playing bass in high school, but I also have I had a perfectionist issue. So like the thought of jamming in a jam band to me was like not something I would ever be able to. I could probably do it now, but at that moment I was just like, that's impossible to me. So were you or you guys always into that jamming experimental thing, or did you have to like defeat anxiety about it, or do you still experience the anxiety? Like, I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a reminder that this band's 24 years old, right? So we've been around a long time, and when the band started, that was a period in all our musical lives where, we were listening to a lot of improvised music, whether it had been the Grateful Dead, whether it had been, Fish, whether it had been, that whole realm of bands. And I only speak for a couple of us. There's people in our band that have never, ever, ever entered that domain ever in terms of their listening. And so, so that's sort of the roots of the band. So that's where things started. So it just seemed like if you were in a band and you played music, that's what you did, because that was at that point what we were exposed to and what we were comfortable with. And honestly, I don't know that we could have ever predicted, hey, 24 years from now, we're still going to be playing as a band. Like it was night to night, like, oh, we got another show next weekend. Cool. Let's play that. And then turned into a bit of a situation where we could all do it and make a living from it full time for a period of time. And so, it just kept rolling, and show after show and tour after tour and weekend after weekend. And, then you're kind of in the middle of it. And so to answer your question about being anxious about it, or no, because we were just so familiar, and that became the identity of the band. Okay. Or at least for me specifically, I didn't experience any anxiety around that. There was nights where it was terrible, right? Where you're kind of throwing it all out there and it falls apart. And then there's nights when you throw it all out there and it just feels like you're the best band on earth. And not to say that we ever are, but there's been moments on stage with our band where I've just felt like, holy smokes, like this is so fun. And like, it's just so cool to have gotten musically where we are right now. And there may not be anyone else in that room that feels the same way, but that's kind of the special nature of it, I guess.
Okay.
But we honestly, man, we don't think that much about that piece of it. We still work really hard at writing good songs, and we feel like we do have a back catalog of really good music. Like, strip away the improv stuff, there's a lot of really proggy type music, like multi-part sort of arrangements and just kind of really strange, interesting music. And there's also really concise pop songs that are been on the radio, and it's just sort of there's a real mismatch there. And that might be part of our issue, is that we don't really have an identity that way, right? Like musically, it can be a country song, or it can be, as dark and doom metal as we could be, So it's all ideas are good ones, really, in our world, until they're not. So, but it's cool. We're making new music now. Like we started a new studio record. We've got drum tracks done for many songs, like 15, I think.
Oh wow! Cool.
Really hard over the last 2 months getting that together.
Okay.
And once we get through kind of this summer, I guess, and the handful of dates we're going to play, we'll sort of hunker down and get to work on getting that worked out. But no expectation. I don't know if it'll ever come out. Hopefully it will. That's our intention, I suppose, is to make sure that it's a new GTD studio album. Mm-hmm. But there's no rules around it. There's no label looking for it. It's just on our own steam. And hopefully a year from now, we've got it in the bag and down and out. But anyway, that's a long-winded answer to your question, but we honestly don't think too much about it. We don't think too much about it. We as a group have so much fun. Like, just the shows are so fun, and we're busy family guys, so we don't have a lot of time to hang out specifically as the band. And when we do, it's ridiculous. It's funny and goofy, and it's just a lot of fun to do it.
Okay, very cool. When you are in the moment live and you're going through an improv session, and you kind of mentioned sometimes it's not so hot, sometimes it's like the best thing ever. Can you feel like when it's building into this like improv moment that's going to like go in a direction, and it's going to be satisfying? Like, can you feel that coming, even though you don't know what's about to happen? If that makes any sense. Yeah,
for sure. There's an element of like, what's going to happen here, and that's exciting. The way we structure the show, or we know when the improvised moments are going to happen for the most part. We just don't know what they're going to be.
Okay.
And so, it's sort of like, it's a bit of a mystery. It's a bit of a journey, and we're kind of all in it together. That sounds a little cheesy and a little cliche-ish, but it's true. And that the music that's happening at that moment has never been made before, and it's not going to ever be made again. And it's just sort of like, where's this thing going to go? What's he playing? What's that sound like? How do I complement that? How do I get out of his way? Mm-hmm. How do I change key? Because we often do that. We often just sort of like, we know what song we're going to go into.
Okay.
But we just don't know how we're going to get there. So we might be playing a song in C, and the next song has to get to D sharp, and we just got to find our way there.
Okay.
And that's a real ear test. There's a lot that it moves gradually, and it's just trying to experiment and musically understand how to arrive there, and without it sounding, too terrible. Mm-hmm. But a lot of practice at it, and generally speaking, we can make it work.
Yeah. Is there a balance between feeling and sound? Like you mentioned, make sure it doesn't sound terrible, but is it really like, where does feeling come in? Like sometimes a feeling.
Oh, that's an interesting question. For me, it's all that. I'm not a very technical musician. Like I can get around. Like in this band, I play bass, and I can get around on it. I'm not a terribly technical or proficient bass player, but I can tell you I'm a better bass player in that band than I would be in any other band. And that's just that whole sum of its cards thing. Mm-hmm. So for me, the feeling thing is sort of like, it's a vibe. If I can describe it that way, it's just sort of, what does this piece of music feel like, and how do I contribute to it? And for other guys who are more technical, maybe it's like, they're worried about the modes on the guitar, or they're harmonically, what am I doing with this? And I think everyone's got their own sort of interpretation of it, experience with it. But for me, it's very much the feeling of it, it's the emotion of the music, and how do I sort of chase that down, or how do I get away from it? If this isn't feeling like something I'm comfortable with.
Oh yeah, okay.
Where am I going to take it? Mm-hmm. It's really dark and doomy, and it's something I want to feel more optimistic about. Then that dictates your note choices, right?
Interesting. Can we explore that for a second? Like, if the band's jamming and like there's a vibe, like it's not quite working, how do you know like who's going to fix it or who's going to shift the direction?
You don't,
eh? Okay.
It could be any one of five guys on any given night, and maybe no one does. Right? Yeah. Maybe there's a couple of interesting tricks in that. Sometimes it's almost like a gradual fade out. Like you're turning your record player down.
Okay.
And you're just kind of moving into the next thing.
Okay.
we don't really rely on that kind of stuff, but that can certainly happen. Sometimes it's the less is more approach. Okay, I'm playing, but maybe I should be leaving a lot more space here for what's happening, and maybe the space will create an opportunity here to look at something else or go a different direction.
Okay.
Maybe Bob changes something rhythmically, or takes kick drums out that would lead us to believe that we're moving into the next song, or there's subtle shifts and
Okay.
So there's really no answer to that. It's just it kind of happens on its own, and that's sort of the mystery of it. And I know how cliche and cheesy that sounds, but there is there's a musical mystery that we're sort of chasing, that sometimes we just don't find it.
Yeah. Sometimes you just don't find it. So you kind of have to accept the fact that sometimes it's just not gonna work out.
Which is fine. It's just like the path getting there, the music that led to getting there is oftentimes it's really cool, right? And we just didn't recognize it in the moment. So it's made for some interesting listen backs for sure.
Okay.
Some stuff is just like, holy, I can't believe we would do that in front of people, and other moments of like, holy smokes, I had no idea it sounded like that in context, and wow, am I ever happy with the way that turned out.
Okay, that's really cool. Okay, keeping with the live vibe. So another thing that kind of like, even though I wasn't necessarily listening to Grand Theft Bus that much when I was in Fredericton and first getting into the scene, but your seamless sets with the Jimmy Swift band, kind of like everyone knew about them, or at least everyone in my world knew about them or heard about them. And I know you just kind of revived them with a tour with them a year or two ago. Do you mind explaining how that came to be? Like how the seamless set ideas first came to be?
Sure, yeah. If I'm totally honest, I don't remember sort of when that idea was hatched, and I'm confident that our two bands probably didn't invent the concept. I'm sure of it. But I mean, it was years ago when we were touring all the time, and those guys were too. We've spent a lot of time together on the road and also at festivals and just busy bands at that time. And I think it was just sort of, I think the first ones, maybe they happened in Ontario. Honestly, I can't remember, but there was a period where we did a couple of runs of shows with those happening. And I think we did a couple of festivals and that kind of thing, but it was just sort of like what I described with our band and how it operates. It was just enter another band into the picture and just to see what sticks, right? And it is what it is, seamless set. So the show just doesn't end. Like it's two bands set up, and one band plays and then the other band joins and they all play together, and then band A leaves the stage and band B plays a set, and then just on repeat. So it's cool. Again, some awesome moments, some awesome nights, some awesome experiences. Then there's other situations where there's 10 grown men on stage wanking on instruments, and that can get really chaotic and confusing. Yeah. But it's all accepted, right? And it's sort of like, what's going to stick? How's this going to work? So it was really cool to do it again. It was really cool to see those guys again. Like, they're in Nova Scotia, and Aaron was in Toronto forever. He's back in Nova Scotia now, but we spent a lot of time together back in the day, and it was really cool to see them again and just hang out, and really fun to make that music again. Yeah, for sure. And the tour was well received with them. Yeah. Yeah, it was very well received. Yeah, we played some really, really fun shows. Yeah. Okay. There was lots of online traffic asking if we'd be doing it again, and suggesting places we should be to do it, and requests to come out west, and that would again. There's, I think, how many kids in our band? There's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids in our band between all our band members, and I'm sure there's similar. There's all kinds of kids floating around their world too. So it's not just as easy as picking up and taking off and doing it. So, yeah, gotcha. Maybe down the road there'll be some opportunities, but it's so funny. It's like we've been a band for that long, for 24 years. A lot of what's happening now is it seems like for people coming, it's nostalgic. Oh, I saw you I was in university in Fredericton, and I was away for 10 years, and now I'm home. And it's really cool to hear those stories. For us, it's not nostalgic, right? It's like we've been playing the whole time, making new music. Certainly there was breaks and unscheduled hiatuses and babies born and oh, excuse me, I almost fell. But it's not the nostalgia piece that makes it fun and interesting. It's making the music, and like I said, we've got new songs that we're play on next Friday night in St. John that no one's heard yet.
Okay.
Right. Cool. And so it's new, and there's new things happening. And so I take that back. Yes, it's a little bit nostalgic because it's those people, and it's, they're all collecting because of a thing they experienced a long time ago and a really important part of their life. And we were there for that. But it's not over, I guess, is my thing. It's not just in the rear view looking back. It's like we're having a lot of fun making new music and what we think is good music.
Yeah.
We'll continue to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the longevity of the band can, the people who are feeling nostalgia about it can pass it on to their families too, so it can kind of like keep it rolling.
Yeah, and it's happening. We've just the other night we played a show here in Fredericton, an outdoor show, and there's people who've been seeing our band for 24 years who now have teenagers that are singing along, and
cool.
it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. We're really fortunate.
Have you run into anyone who like separates the band in like pre-Brad, post-Brad eras?
Do you know what's funny? No, not really. I don't know what year Brad came into the band. Maybe you do. Do you know? Like it feels like forever in a great way.
Yeah.
But it's been well over 10 years for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It seems like it's almost 50-50. I can't quite remember when I heard him say that or announce that, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's been a long time, and Brad's amazing. He's just such a talent, and just hilarious, and just the best energy to have around. It's really, we aren't really a band without him now. Like, I know the first 10 years or whatever spent as a 4-piece, but he's very, very integral piece to the machine now.
Is he working on the new record? Like engineering wise, is he helping to track the record?
Well, it's funny. Yes and no. So we don't really know what's going to happen moving forward. It's going to be more of a group thing. But so Bob spent basically a month working on drum tracks, and so Brad went out to his house and set him up.
Okay.
With mics, and just they did a little experimenting around sounds and stuff, and then just set him up. So Bob was able to come and go and track everything himself. So now we have those edits, and we'll work from there. So I think the plan is really to be. Dennis has an awesome space. He just renovated his basement into kind of a studio space, studio rehearsal space, and it's amazing. And so I think the plan is really just to now that the drums are done, that's sort of in many ways the more complicated part. To be set up in his basement, so it'll be a combination of Dennis and Brad and all of our opinions after that. But the technical piece, Brad's our default because he's so good at that and knows that world inside and out. So, but Dennis is really capable, and Bob's really capable. Tim and I not so much, but we have friends who are, so it's all good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess that's that whole thing now with technology, right? It's like we've got the ability to do this, fairly cost effectively and also just on our own time. So
that was going to be my next question, is the approach like, so it sounds like the drums are tracked by themselves this go around, and you guys will be laying your tracks on top of just the pure drum tracks?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's always been elements of that. just depending on the project and sometimes there's some live off the floor stuff, and there's on our studio records, there's elements of that, but this will be the first time it's just been all drums, and then we just track after that. And really that's just around, it's a time thing. Like we're all super busy, and how do you find time to get 5 dudes in a room for 2 weeks in a row to do it? So, and there's no expectations, right? It's sort of like, let's just make a thing with the time and stuff available to us, and there's no expectations about how it sounds or how good it is, or we'll do our best and see what kind of sticks.
Cool. Yeah, if you're happy with it, then that's all that matters, really, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's hard to deny the technology now has made it so affordable, and you can get pretty good sounds out of the digital technology now. Like it's come so far the last 10 or 15 years that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and it's all about taste too, right? It's like, some of my favorite records are old and recorded with one microphone in the room, right, for the whole band. And then there's awesome sounding records from the 70s that are just all the analogs cut the tape stuff, and it's great that digital is convenient, but it's all a matter of opinion, and I don't know. It's like there's endless options, right? Especially in that digital world, there's just endless options to make things sound the way you would like them to sound.
Yeah.
And,
yeah,
we'll see.
That can be a problem, actually. Yeah,
totally.
Choice. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see sort of what identity this one has, And if you've gone through our catalog, we don't have that many studio records. I guess we've got, the three in an EP and then a live one, but I don't know what kind of identity this one will have. What's it going to sound like relative to the others? And, I can tell you the drums sound different than the Made Upwards drums. That's for sure.
Okay. Cool. That's exciting. Well, there'll be a it's nice to have a twist on, it'll sound like Grand Theft Bus, but it'll have a unique twist to it, I'm sure. Just like
somehow. Yeah, somehow it will. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So with any luck, we'll see that maybe next year, or I guess you don't have a deadline per se, but
no deadline. But it's I'd like Tim and I are next up, sort of thing, just by the nature of how we want to do it, and it's just a matter of getting to be honest, this July 12th date has been it's been a lot of work and it's been time consuming. So just once we get that out of the way, we'll have some time, I think, to spend on it. So rehearsals are kind of weekly rehearsals will probably turn into recording sessions and taken away at that.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Okay, I'll remind the listeners, July 12th here, 2024, for anyone listening in the present. Area 506 Container Village, Grand Theft Bus will be recording their second live record. So tickets are still available. I'll put a link and all that in the information below for anyone who wants to snag tickets before they sell out. And so that's July 12th. Hopefully new record next year. Is there going to be any... So the live show, are you going to resurrect any of the Rhubarbicon songs that kind of got lost to time, or what's the vibe there?
That's really funny. You've seen that, obviously.
I have, yeah.
What's funny is there's a member of our band who has never actually seen it.
Okay.
And we often joke about having a viewing party to get together and watch that. I'll tell you this. There's no plan necessarily, but anything is possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely anything is possible.
Very cool. Well, I would hope maybe Greg would show up and film the resurrection of Grand Theft Bus.
That's funny. I hope Greg's around. I haven't talked to him in a little bit, but I hope he's around. He's an amazing dude and a huge piece of our band's history, and it's just been such a supporter and just such a great person.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool, Graeme. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. It's quite fascinating. I'll, like I said, this will be on Sunday. I'll play a bunch of Grand Theft Bus tunes. Is there anything else you want to plug, or did you want to talk about that I didn't bring up?
I don't think so, man. I don't know, just we're really grateful. We've been a band a long time and having more fun in it now than we probably ever have. So the idea that people come out and see this still and are willing to do it and willing to support it, we're just really, really grateful that we get a chance to do it. It's so fun. So fun.
Maybe just one last, that brought a question to mind. Brad came into the band maybe halfway through, but has it been the same lineup since?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, since 2000. Yeah. 2000, so sort of when things started. And actually Bob and Tim and I played in a band together before that. Sort of started around 97, 98, I guess. They said at Halifax. So we've been making music together a long time.
Yeah, that's awesome. The longevity, and that is something to be grateful for, to be still keeping the band together 2 decades and a half later.
It's crazy, honestly. It's so silly. For us, it's just really fun and silly, and it's just acting like jackasses and just having a blast with it. And the idea that people are kind of along for that ride, it's crazy.
That's awesome. Probably helps keep you guys young too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with me. It was really interesting. Appreciate it.
Awesome. My pleasure, Jay. Appreciate you being interested. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good one.
Hey, man. Take care.
See ya.